The information discussed in this episode of Torah Talk can be found in a book called Fossilized Customs by Lou White, and you can order this from www.torazone.net. Get a copy now along with the scriptures ISR and find out what the controversy is all about for yourself. Join the global revolution today.
Alright, that's enough.
Welcome to Torah Talk, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Torah Talk, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters.
Breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. People now.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Torah Talk Show with Lou White and Mark Davidson.
The SICKLE Series.
A Torah Institute production.
Hey,
good
brother. How are you?
Good morning.
Hey,
Hey, sister. How are you?
I'm fine. I feel great. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. It's is it hot weather or cold weather there?
It's just spring. It's basically warm. It's in the upper 70s and mid 80s usually right now, and the plants are all coming back really well.
Yeah.
You know.
Fantastic.
Is it cold there? I see you're wearing a thing with a hood.
It's pretty cold here.
Yeah. Oh
Freezing.
boy.
We're down in Victoria now, so it's really cold at night. So,
Are you? You're not in Malakuta?
yeah, Malakuta is in Victoria. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So,
And yeah.
yeah, we're not up north like we used to be. It's not cold up there.
Yeah.
So, you guys look well.
Well, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's just the opposite here. You know, going south means warmer, and being up north is colder.
Chris in Victoria told us that our light switches are upside down too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when we turn a light on, we flip it up.
Okay.
We drive on the wrong side of the road too.
Yeah, that'd be hard. That'd be
And our water drains backwards.
We're having a terrible time here.
Oh, yeah.
It's upside down.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
y'all have a great talk. Listen, Mark, I really wanted to say thank you so much for the efforts you put into doing these tour talks. I don't know if I've ever really thanked you, but I really did it.
That's fine. No problem. Loved it. Loved it.
See ya.
See you later.
Yeah. We have a lot of incredible
well, a lot of very hard-hitting things on the videos.
Yes.
That go against the grain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not doing it in an unloving way, though. I mean, we have fun with it because it's just people talking, not just us talking back and forth, but the people who set the orthodoxy were just talking back and forth too, and they don't have any legs. There's no foundation under them. They just, that's their opinion. In fact, one of the things that really occurred to me was as I was studying the Nicene Creed and the Council of Nicaea, there were some 318 bishops, and of course they had just as much knowledge as the average person does today. Not the people that study Scripture, but they were just basically regular people. But they were very opinionated about what they'd been taught, and it was all basically tradition. And they all got together at this place, and they all debated, and it was the majority that ruled on whatever it was. You know, and I thought, well, it's not a matter of majority. And then Yahusha gave me this. He said, you know, in my mind anyway, repetition. Can you read that?
Yeah, repetition can't change a lie into truth.
Yeah. It can't do it. So we're basically just saying, well, what if it wasn't the way they've been saying, but what if it was another way? Not to be contentious or, you know, just look at the things that we've been handed down, the things that have been handed down to us, you know.
I think you can be contentious.
What was that?
I said I think you can be contentious. They are.
They are, yeah. Only we are a little different. They get rather angry because you know, you can see the fury that builds up in a person when, you know, they have a pet or a whole list of pet things that they believe, and then you come in and say, well, what if that's not true? What if it's some other possibility? And then they don't want to hear it, you know.
No.
So I encountered this thing. It's a little box.
Wow.
And
a treasure chest.
Yes, it looks kind of. It's a box of mysteries. And I thought, well, you know, what if we had a little box of mysteries, and we just and picked up this, you know, a little had a little secret that we were going to reveal.
Yeah.
From the time. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
These are all things. This is kind of representative of what we've been doing over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is taking a little thing and going, what's this about? You know, just little things that we've been tweaking, and you know, it occurred to me that you know, the mark of the beast. Well, what's a beast? It's an animal. Where are the animals? Oh yeah, they're up there in the stars. And you know, I'm always reminded of it almost every day. Somebody's having a birthday. Well, I say, well, is it really your birthday today? Or is it the anniversary of your birthday? Yeah, it's more like the anniversary of your birthday. But what is your birthday? What does it have to do with? It has to do with the Babylonian, you know, zodiac and what sign you are and all that. And it occurred to me that this is all a web of ideas that have been locked together that people don't instantly associate with, you know, the other things. And that's what they're doing. They just keep practicing this. And so they're marked. They're in their behavior. They're actually marching along in their lives, following this pattern. And we're trying to get them out of that stronghold, you know.
Yeah. Amazing.
What would you like to talk about today?
Can you just tell Phyllis to stop typing so angrily? I can hear her in the background. She's what are you writing, an essay or something?
Sorry.
Oh, she's excited. She's answering an email to someone. Yeah, we got an early start today. It's only about 8 o'clock here.
Yeah.
And
yeah. It's only 10 o'clock here tonight. It used to be midnight. Then you changed an hour and I changed an hour, and now it's back to 10 o'clock, which is great.
Yeah.
So it's much better.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd like to talk about, brother. You've been putting a lot of things out lately. What's happening in your town? Your neck of the woods.
it just seems like I'm working all the time, and and then the study. Of course, my heart is really into wanting to study. I study history, and the history of the assembly and the circus, of course. Not to be angry about it, but just to say, well, at first, we were all, as we find something that was error, we say, well, wait a minute, these guys made this stuff up, and they changed the day of the week to the day we're supposed to rest, from the Sabbath to the first day of the week. Where is that? And people start hunting, and of course the Christian teachers are out there saying, well, you need to do your own research and get into the scriptures, because that way you'll have a relationship with the one that redeemed you, and then you go into the scriptures, as we all do, and we see something different written in the book than we see in the world, and then we go, well, how did this happen? And so tracking back, using the internet, you can do that. You can track back and find out where this started, And of course, I've been interested in that sort of thing all my life, it seems like. Where did it come from? And lately, I've been studying the Trinity, the doctrine of the Trinity.
Yeah.
And of course, remember in Acts 15, it talked about, well, the discussion is about one thing, and that has to do with how are Gentiles going to become part of this belief, this faith? How are they going to do that? And it says right at the beginning that the controversy was over the debate as to whether or not they needed to be physically circumcised, the males, the adult males. Now, that's the issue of the First Council. What is noticeable in the conspicuousness of its absence is that Sunday is not in the debate. And there's another thing that's missing. The setting of the date of EASTER is not in the debate. And another thing that's missing, the Trinity. They're not debating the Trinity. That started to become an issue in the 2nd century. Because this stuff was filtering over from Eastern regions, where the Nimrod's religion was most active, like in the Hindu religion. And people were traveling back and forth along the Silk Road and by sea, and they were bringing these things back, and they were also bringing back this nonsense. And they were bringing it back to the Mediterranean and the assembly. In the 2nd century, these heresies started up, and Gnosticism and so forth. And they thought that allegorizing was the best way to find the secrets, and so the school of Alexandria in Alexandria, Egypt, became dominant because, after all, what was there? The school of Alexandria was the early assembly of what we grew into eventually Catholicism, and it was the repository of all human knowledge, basically, in the library at Alexandria, which burned, I think, 3 times. Because they kept wanting to revise history, because the adversary doesn't want us to have information. So anyway, Alexandria was where Rome looked to, In fact, Alexandria had to make copies and send it to the Caesars for their library, because the Roman library wasn't nearly as extensive as the Alexandrian library. Anyway, and then I started studying a little further, and I thought, well, what was going on? And it turns out that the baseline of the school of Alexandria that produced all the Circus Fathers was that of allegory, allegorizing Scripture. So they allegorized everything, and they read into the text whatever they wanted. And then the opposing school was Antioch. A lot of people.
Allegorize mean?
Allegorize means to imagine something that's not really there. Like, for example, they take a scripture like 1 John chapter 5, and they say that these 3 things, what is it? The Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these are in agreement. And you don't even know what they're talking about if you just take a snapshot of that. They turn it into the Trinity.
Yeah.
Of course, that's allegorizing. But if you back up to chapter 4 of 1 John, you see that this Gnosticism is what he's talking about. He's talking about this thing that had started up in the late 1st century, that his disciples, like I think it was Polycrates. No, it was Polycarp. Polycarp, a disciple of Yahushua. But anyway, he was teaching his students, we're talking about Yahushua. He was teaching his students that this Gnostic teaching was wrong, that Yahusha really did come in the flesh. See, Gnostics thought that all flesh and all material things were evil, intrinsically evil, because they were physical, and that spiritual was the only thing that was really good. So there was this dichotomy of physical and spiritual. And that's what you have in the Hindu teachings, where you have that little wheel, and there's light and there's darkness. Well, the light was the spiritual, and the darkness was the material. See? So there were the two elements, the spiritual and the, and what, I'm not talking about elements like the Greeks had elements. I'm talking about the light and darkness. And of course, they really embraced that quickly. But Yahushua was trying to instruct his students, that this Gnostic idea that Yahusha was pure and had to have been spirit and not flesh was false. And he said, these are false teachers. And then going into chapter 5 of First Yahushua, we see him extending that into this evidence that these things, the spirit, the water, and the blood, bear witness that he was, in fact, not a Trinity, but that he was physical. You see? Yeah. And they don't take this into account because it goes against their grain of their own theology, their understanding. Yeah. So, but it was basically the Council of Nicaea in the year 325 that all of this orthodoxy that they had became absolutely imposed. They put it into a creed. And then from that point on, all of us down the line have embraced all these weird ideas. But the opposing school, though, the school of Alexandria is where all this stuff started. But the opposing school that believed in literal interpretation was the school of Antioch. And Antioch lost the battle, Yeah.
And it's so important not to read into the text, isn't it? I mean, just when I was doing some of those audio scriptures and I was reading some of the acts, and like when he's laying up there and he has the dream of the vision about the sheet coming down with the animals on and all that sort of stuff. And we're always taught that, you can eat whatever you want. It's like, and I'm reading it going, he's not even talking about food, He's talking about the Gentile, the unclean people he has to go and meet. And
the three. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just an example. And there was Galatians where, like, they're talking about all this stuff. It's all about circumcision, and they make it into something else. Like, you don't have to follow the law anymore. Like, it's like, well, that's not what he's talking about. It's the same words I'm reading here, isn't it? It's just easy. I didn't find it. Everyone's like, Paul's so hard to understand. Why? Sounds fine to me. I understood it. If I understood, anybody could. It's just like it's...
Well, we've surrendered, though, to the will of Yahuwah, and those that have not are trying to do it with their own reasoning. Yeah. And you can't do it with your own mind. Your fleshly mind doesn't want to submit to the Torah. The Torah is the instructions of Yahuwah, particularly the Ten Commandments. They don't. The human flesh does not want to submit. But when you have received His Spirit, then He gives you His perspective. And you don't see it from you. You still remember the way you saw it, but you don't want to be like that. And so there's this war going on inside your heart over the flesh is pulling you over one way, and He is saying, no, you stay on track. This is the way I see what sin is, or transgression. So sin is transgression of the law, the law of Yahuwah, and it's eternal.
Yeah.
So
another interesting thing I found that Paul was going on about is that, and the first couple of times I kind of read past it, and then later on it started to click with me. He kept saying, if if aside from the Torah, there's no such thing as sin. Like, I kept reading it going, how can there be no such thing as sin? And he kept saying it over and over again. It's eventually dawned on me. And I was saying to Amy a couple of weeks later, because she was talking about somebody she'd met in town and how they were behaving or whatever. And it was like, to the world, there's no such thing as sin. It's just normal. It's just normal. It's not until the Torah actually comes into a situation that sin is identified as being sin. Without the Torah, that's what Paul was saying, without the Torah, there's no such thing as sin. So it's kind of like the Torah brought forth sin, but it didn't really. It's like the Torah reveals what evil is. And most people are just riddled with it. But they don't know that they are.
That's right.
Which I found kind of interesting. I'd never read it like that before. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. See, we don't understand it because we aren't being taught, and that's what we're here to do. One of the things that occurred to me in doing the research on this topic of the Trinity, for example, is coming up. Yahuwah willing, it'll be the first day of the week. I'll do that, and there's this statement that was written by Athanasius. Athanasius was, believe it or not, he was 27 years old when he went to Nicaea. He was considered to be one of those 318 bishops. Anyway, here's what he said. Now, this is going to shock a lot of people that are not Catholic, because Christianity is, sometimes people that are Christians don't even accept Catholics as being Christian, but actually they're all Catholic. And this is really bizarre, because when you read this, I mean, when you hear this, this is going to be amazing. See, Athanasius was about 27 years old in 325. And he went to this, imposed collection or council that, was called by Constantine. Here we go, Constantine. And here's what he wrote. Athanasius of Alexandria, Egypt, wrote these words. He defined the faith in these words. Quote, whosoever will be saved, before all things it is necessary that he hold the Catholic faith, which faith except everyone do keep whole and undefiled, without doubt he shall perish everlastingly. And the Catholic faith is this, that we worship one God in Trinity, and Trinity in unity, neither confounding the persons nor dividing the essence. For there is one person of the Father, another of the Son, and another of the Holy Ghost. This is the Catholic faith, which except a man believe truly and firmly, he cannot be saved. Okay, that's unquote. Now, what about Daniel? What's Daniel going to do? What about all the people that were at the first council at Jerusalem? Do they believe any of those things? And it didn't even come about until 325. But what they had done is they had embraced all that Gnosticism. And Christians embrace it. Because, see, all these Christian theological universities are teaching all of their pastors about the Circus Fathers. And who were the Circus Fathers? They were Catholics. So, anyway.
Are you about to put out a 11th edition?
Oh, of Fossilized Customs, yes.
That was less than a year ago, wasn't it? The 10th one came out?
It was about that, yeah.
That's sold quick. Did you get a big batch of those?
Well, we only printed it in 5,000 so that we could afford it, because we can't afford it any more than that. We can try to, it's just really expensive to print.
And then they're gone. Wow.
Oh, yes. And, of course, whatever we can make on a copy is used in other ways. We don't even have the money to replace the book because everything is so expensive. Utilities, the mortgage, just running everything. It just takes all the money.
I thought the numbers were dropping. It sounds like they're going up.
Oh, well, we're selling the books faster as they run out. I don't know why that is, but when you don't want to run out quickly, well, running out quickly is a good thing, really. If we could sell 5,000 a month, that would be great, because there's billions of people out there that need to hear the other side. the other side is just simply the perspective of, hey, why don't we obey the commandments? Wouldn't that be easier? Well, yeah. What? And the schools are out there fighting it, going, no, don't teach these children this. And why not? I don't know. What's wrong with, you know, I think the one that really bothers them is the fourth commandment. You know, remember the Sabbath. Keep it set apart. And they don't want to acknowledge the Creator. See, that's what that does. You know, for he made the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh. And that's the core one. That's why it's the covenant sign. But the other one, you know, the one that, well, idolatry, you know, destroying his name, you know, those are all in the first four. But then the last six, witches agree with, you know. You know, Satanists wouldn't mind keeping the last six commandments at all.
Are you redesigning anything in the book, or are you sticking with the new glossy cover?
I'm actually
irrelevant.
Everything's the same, basically. It's going to be the same. There's going to be 4 more pages. It's not that much bigger, but I've gone back and tweaked the text and gone into it and worked with a few things that I don't agree with anymore. I mean, I'm learning, and I'm not afraid to change something. If I've learned something about something and I've printed something that's not something I believe anymore, or I wanted to fine tune it, I put it in. I changed it a little bit. So there's changes all over the book, and I've had 1 or 2 people that have helped me. They've emailed me little things that they saw, like sometimes I'd need a space, or there was a word that was misspelled or something, and I would go ahead and make those changes, and I appreciate those helps. Even in the 11th edition, I had to make changes, you know.
Wow, still going after, what, 20 years?
Yeah, well, it's
84, wasn't it?
84, 85 that I started Bold Mud, and then Fossilized Customs, and the fascicle form. And then, yeah, it just kept on. Yeah. It's probably the thing I was put here to do, you know, that book.
And those pictures about the steel girders, they were good. That's from the introduction of Fossilized, isn't it?
It is. I remembered that as I was going back and reading and seeing what I had been given decades ago. And I thought, well, you know, it would be neat to just put some of these doctrines that people have been taught on steel girders and see if any of these are, and it looks like none of them actually are riveted together. They're not really true. So there's a lot of steel girders in the building we call Christianity that have no basis in truth or fact, which is really amazing. You know.
With the seminars, if Adam can't record them, do you want to do something like, because I mean, after our next episode we will have done like 50 Torah talks. Do you want to say end that at 50 maybe and do something different, like do your live, because most of the time the camera's on you anyway. Do a live, like or come up with a different name for it, like a Torah teaching. And then just at the end or something, I can come on and ask any questions I might have or whatever. That way you're sort of combining 2 things into one, kind of. You can still be there with your screen or your PowerPoint, whatever you've designed.
Yeah.
And you could still be sitting like you are now. I can just put it next to you, and you can still point to it. And, you know, do that.
Wow, you could record it, and that would make it so much. You would only have to do it once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Let's do that. Let's practice with one. You know, do one for practice. Not a long one, just maybe something that takes about 10 minutes. And it's on some little topic. I'll pull something out of this box, this magic box of mysteries, or the magisterium box, whatever we want to call this thing. And we can do a little PowerPoint thing and discuss it, and then record it and see how that works.
Yeah. Because that's basically what we were doing last year when we did a lot of the first fruits. We were going over your old seminars, like the first fruit, the resurrections and the first fruits and everything. That was all your slides. You're using your slides, so it's not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, and we can, you know, put some personality into it. And if you wanted to pop in, you know, that would be really cool. If something if Yahusha moves in your heart and wants to say, wait a minute, something just occurred, then
Yeah.
pop in, and this head can pop in, and then.
You should still tell Adam, even if his hardware's lacking a bit, he could still record it on audio. That won't do too much damage to his processor. Audio doesn't take much to do, and we could just put it out as a podcast.
Yeah.
And people who because some people just don't have any teaching and they love what you're bringing forth. So if the cameras and the video works a bit heavy on his setup, then just record through the mic.
Sure.
And I can just upload it like a radio thing.
Yeah, the Skyping is adequate quality for video, I think.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
No.
I mean, people don't need to have, the refinements of, all that hardware.
No.
But I'm still going to be trying to get him to record, the video and the audio at the seminar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I noticed the last few is just a screen. I thought, what's happening?
The last couple, in fact, this one right here I don't know if it's the second one or the third one like that, but he's just recording the screen. I'm there. You can see my hand.
Yeah.
And I said, Adam, how hard would it be to just back it off a couple of feet and just pull me into this thing? So I'm this little guy over on the left.
Yeah.
This one is called The Servant. And
how did that go? That was last month, was it?
That's right. You haven't seen this. It was done on, I forget the date, but it was early in the 4th month. And I really like the research on the servant. The scriptures is about being a servant, and it's because it's actually idolatry if we aren't servants. Who are we serving? And I remembered back in the day, I don't know if it was the 1980s sometime, that Bob Dylan, that musician, came out with this album, and on one of the cuts there was this song, "Who You Gonna Serve?" So I pulled him into the thing. His head's in there. And
that servant teaching was amazing. I haven't seen the seminar, but even when we were discussing it, it just blew my brains out, because I was always taught as an apprentice hairdresser that you're in a servant industry and, do what you're told, make the client happy. You're a servant. Bow down, be humble, grateful, and, they pay you. It's great. If old people can see young people respecting them, they'll fall over backwards, because it doesn't happen these days. And so we were taught that way, and somewhere along the line, probably when I started having my own shops, I lost sight of that. Started getting angry with clients and taking things personal, lost sight of the rules, the test, lost sight of all that. And that just all brought it back together. And your servant thing came through around about the same time that Chris's test, what he was saying about the test, was coming through. And so double whammy, I just got it, and it was amazing. It's been amazing practicing that. So.
Yeah, see, marriages are under siege. They're under attack. And when a person incorporates this thing that Chris was given about the test, both sides, even if one side uses the test, of letting the other person be who they are and putting yourself below that person, instead of trying to dominate the other person and what they think or the way they behave, because your behavior is you only have to control yourself. You don't have to reach out and control your spouse. You do have to nurture and control your children. But adults don't appreciate it when another adult tries to control them. That's not the way we aren't wired that way. But when you do things in the opposite way, you can lead. Instead of driving a person with a poker, you can lead them in a gentle way. And that's what is so cool about the fruits of the Spirit. Because the fruits of the Spirit give you the picture of this behavior. Romans 12 and Galatians chapter 5 and You don't have to be this loud, blustering, commanding individual.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
judgmental. You know, you don't have to make fun of other people. People who have the wrong doctrines, or the people who might have a different opinion than you do. It isn't necessary for you to be angry about anything. It's always important to be gentle, loving, kind, and yet faithful to the truth. You know, and you know, Phyllis and I have been noticing every time we reprint Fossilized Customs, there's a spiritual thing that happens. It's like the gates of hell get released. You know, all these people on the fringes of our life suddenly go into this turmoil, and we know it's spiritual. Phyllis says, "Oh, sometimes I don't know if that's spiritual. I think it's that person." And I say, "No, there's something behind this. Our enemy is not flesh and blood; it's spiritual. The principalities are not happy when Fossilized Customs gets reprinted, and that's what we're seeing now. There's things happening. I don't want to go into all of it, but there's things going on."
You started to, what's the word, vaporize.
Yeah, turning into a gaseous state.
Yeah. So it gets heavy when oh, you're gone again.
I'm gone?
You're gone again.
Maybe
Try again.
I need to get in front of the camera.
There we go. Try that. Yeah,
Is
that's
that better?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all happening in your camp, eh? It's all happening in ours too, when you got all those kids running around. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're getting bigger, aren't they? There's a lot of biological material now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the clothing and the feeding and the bathing and the teaching, you know, it's really something. Our grandchildren, there's 3 of them now, and of course we're always looking for the 4th one. But the thing of it is, they're getting big, and when you sit down to eat a meal, there's no food left.
Oh no.
It's scarfed up. They really love it. I mean, they're, you know, it's amazing how much there is to you know, I can only imagine what it's like with 5. Now let's see, you've got Josiah as the oldest.
Yeah, he's 7.5.
And the next one is Luca.
Yeah, he's 6.
And then there's Brandon.
Brandon, he's 5. And Micah turned 4 yesterday, actually. Yeah.
And Aaliyah.
And Aaliyah, she's nearly 2. So
yeah.
She's probably more handful than all the 4 boys put together.
Yeah.
She's a princess. So, oh, they're wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, we're just constantly working out how to get them into routines and order, and trying to get the place into order, and you know, getting them better at that. And they come home from school with a particular mindset and a particular behaviour, and such said this and did that, or you know.
Yeah.
So oh yeah, we don't do that. And, you know, it's a full on. It's always full on, but it's good because the couple of weeks that I was without them. Yeah, it was peaceful in a sense, but you feel like you're not. Your life is kind of on hold. And yeah, I got into some scriptures or doing the audio scriptures and stuff, but you still feel like, yeah, it's great loving Yahusha and everything, but you kind of still feel like your life is on hold because that's what I'm called to do, you know. And so when they all came back, it was just this eruption of drama and chaos and getting everybody back in order. And no, you're supposed to be doing this. No, that. And it's very hard not to feel guilty that you're not doing the right thing. But I think as they get older, you start to realise that young kids, they can't retain much. You know, they can't. It's having 5 young kids. It's a lot of chaos. And as they get a bit older, you think, oh, it's not quite as bad. Bad in other ways, but not in the. It's hard to explain. It's just.
It is.
It's a lot of stuff going on. So,
yeah.
But it's what we needed. Amy and I decided. We look back when we didn't have children and we're just so self-involved, self-centered, chaotic, lawless. Wouldn't be told anything. It's as each child came along, we were forced to change. to adapt. And so it's been, I think that's the way Yahusha's decided to get us into line. Self-control is a big thing. Discipline.
Yes. Marriage itself is a school, in itself. It's a teaching tool that Yahuwah uses, and it's also an anchor. It's all sorts of things. And I look back upon my life and my marriage with Phyllis for over 40 years, and it's just been, I never realized how important she is, and we are, to one another and our family and to our children, because a lot of parents don't look outside themselves and see them how important their influence is on their children. And if they don't get along, and what really helps a child is to see their parents hugging and loving one another and speaking kindly and gently to one another and caring as if they both serve one another. And when children see that, there's this peace that comes upon their heart, and they have a foundation. Instead of constantly being frightened and hiding behind a wall and listening to yelling, that's not good.
No.
Child.
No.
I never had to do that. I never heard my parents do that. Yell. I saw them. They weren't really affectionate so much to one another, but I could see it still. The affection was there.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of yelling.
Did you?
A lot of love too, but a lot of yelling too.
Yeah.
So, but you get to a point where you sort of. I was saying to somebody the other day, you get to a certain age and you think, yeah, my parents were this and my parents were that, and they were stupid, they were hideous and all that. Then you start to have your own children, and you start going, yeah, they didn't do too bad after all, did they? They had it together. They achieved what they achieved, and you start to realise what it takes as a man yourself to achieve, and so you sort of let go of all that crap you collected about your parents. You think, well, they're doing the best they can, whatever.
It takes a lot of time away for the father. The father usually has to go out and work many of the hours of a day, and when I come home, I don't have much left to give, and I really regret that. So what I do is I just think about my power source, and that's Yahusha. And he gets, sometimes in the morning I'm so tired and I'm faced with a whole day. Sometimes I don't sleep well, and I'm faced with a whole day of a long day, like a 10 hour day, and I'm gonna have to meet the public and talk to people on the phone, and I don't even have any time for emails or any of the study of Scripture. But what I do is I think about Him, because the storm is what we can't let get our attention. And when I feel weak, I look to Him. I just sort of look over at Him, and I look to Him and I say, please give me strength. And He does.
Yeah.
So He gives you peace and strength and vision, and He gives you the ability to endure. Because the things that He endured, for our sake, makes whatever we're faced with as if it's nothing.
Have you noticed anybody else? Have you heard anybody else respond how they've felt about the test and things like that? We've noticed that it's gone very quiet in internet land since we've started putting out the rules. Everyone's sort of shutting up a bit.
Well, maybe they're thinking. Maybe they're thinking about it, and I haven't yet. But I do know that there's a sure thing that one of the results that's going to happen is that someone somewhere, if not several someones, will find that when they put themselves as a servant, and they understand that they're a servant, because that's what the test really is defining, serving others, as if they're above you and they're more important than you. And that's the key to this whole thing. And marriages will be saved. Children will not be traumatized by their parents yelling and even the worst thing, divorcing. And if that will save one marriage, if Chris's message through the Yahusha message through Chris and subsequently through us will reach even one marriage and save that marriage. And I've had people tell me that over the years that there was a man that I talked with many years ago. He was having trouble with his marriage, and he came to me in person, and he talked with me about his wife, and I told him basically the idea that, you know, you need to be loving towards your wife and accept her as she is. And he has recently come forward and said that the years that of, you know, otherwise would have been terrible for him and his wife both, and his children, had they broken up, and they've stayed together. So you have to realize who your enemy is. And I give counsel to people, in fact, it was just last week, to someone who was having an argument with his wife, and they both wanted to be right and win the argument. But I gave him the information that he needed to have, and he said, wait a minute. I said, do you know who your real enemy is? It's not your loved one. Your real enemy is spiritual. And this entity, the demonic realm, cannot tolerate marriage because it's an institution of Yahuwah. It's not instituted by the state. The government has nothing to do with marriage, and yet they're out there doing it. That reminds me, and you know, in Matthew 24, Yahusha said something about in the last days, it would be as if it was like in the days of Noah, and they would be marrying and giving in marriage. And I, you know, at first I thought, well, maybe that means, and I'm not trying to allegorize, but the possibility is that the marriages that he was talking about were real marriages, and then he said something different, and giving in marriage. In other words, those would not really be marriages; they would just be given as marriages. And that would remind us of, you know what? You know, the people, it's, well, if you love someone, you should be able to marry them. Well, yeah, except you can't marry your parakeet or some other dude. You know, I mean, are you nuts? You know?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Where are you going to draw the line? Well, we're going to marry donkeys, but we're not going to marry parakeets. I mean, or snakes. That's just wrong. Well, where's the line?
Yeah.
You know, marriage is a covenant relationship between a man and a woman. I mean, the examples given by Yahusha himself, pointing back to Adam and Kuah, the first man and woman. I mean, he mentioned them. You know, so how do you miss that? Well, the world is, it's making me want to run away from the world. You know, he said it's going to get so bad that we're going to have to flee to the mountains, get out of the cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much emphasis and political power put into trying to convince us that all this is right and natural and normal. If it is, why are you trying to convince us?
Yeah, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Isn't it something that we would all be born into? I mean,
Yeah.
We would all understand it, and it would be completely normal.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's abnormal, you know. And that's, I think, possibly what Yahusha was referring to, as because he was referring to marriage. I mean, why would he pull marriage and hold out of his mind, and then hold it up and go, there it is? What? Well, what are we hearing in the media all the time, swirling around? It just never stops. It's like I never get through a day, even though I don't listen to much media at all. I still hear, hey, Rhode Island has just decided now all of New England is, you know, able to marry, you know, whoever they want. Oh boy. But you know, as we understand it, a marriage is something that Yahuwah brings together. The state does not bring it together. Neither do pastors. Pastors don't bring people into a bond of marriage. Where is it written that a pastor brings two men, a man and a woman together in marriage. That's just a behavior that was basically handed down from Catholicism.
Yeah.
You know,
To get
the
married,
institution
yeah.
of Yahuwah.
Yeah. Get married, you just got to go into the tent.
Go into the tent
The
and
tent.
then remain faithful to one another.
Yeah.
You know, because you are bonded.
Mm.
But the lies, I mean, just because you repeat what was that I said? Repetition of an activity or a statement, it can't change a lie into the truth.
Mm.
There's a flashcard. Oh,
Yeah.
I have another flashcard here. Someone that we love dearly. Our Redeemer.
Yeah.
There he is. And yeah, we were, I don't know, I was awakened night before last to look at, I was just meditating on my bed with Yahusha and thinking about how these people just were having conversations with each other, just like we are, and sometimes they would get into heated debates about some doctrine that they created. And we earlier this time, we talked about how the first council in Acts 15, the first council at Jerusalem, they weren't talking about the controversy of the day being the Trinity or being transubstantiation or how to, be immersed or anything like that. These controversies came up later at different councils and different places under Constantine.
Yeah.
It's interesting that there weren't councils before that, because the Catholics recognized the first council not being in Jerusalem in Acts 15, but the first council being at Nicaea, called by Constantine. Well, anyway, the thing that occurred to me was that these were just conversations between men and silly doctrines that were growing out of Gnosticism, And but the three offices that we see that are represented in the three gifts of the Magi that Yahusha has. Yahusha was and is three things. Himself, he's a king or a melech, and he is a priest, the priest of the high priest, Kohen Hagadol. That's what they call it. And he's also Redeemer, which implies that he's going to be the offering, the sacrifice. So he's going to redeem us with his blood. You see, so we got three offices there, offices or roles or characters that he is. So there are three gifts of the Magi: gold, king; frankincense, priest, offering of prayers; and myrrh, which represents death, sacrifice, and redemption. And when we translate or transfer that into the understanding that he's not three persons, he's in three offices, just like you are. You're in offices too. So you're your children's father, you're your spouse's husband, and you're someone's hairdresser. All these titles you can pile up, but that doesn't make you different people.
No.
It makes you the same person being in different characters, because you're like an actor. Only you're not pretending so much, but it's an office that you hold, different offices.
Yeah.
So that would be what we have an understanding of.
That's very interesting. I heard somewhere that Yahusha was likened unto King Daud because that was the only other man in history who was both a king and a priest. You weren't allowed to be both. Is that true? But David wasn't he?
Well, all of Israel is referred to as a set-apart priesthood to the nations, because they're so lost in idolatry, and that Israel was to be used as an instrument of Yahuwah. He was to indwell them as their king, to lead the nations into his kingdom, and that they were to teach them. And that's what synagogues were actually invented for. There's a conspicuous absence of mentioning of synagogues anywhere in the Torah, the prophets, or the writings. you don't go, well, let's look up the word synagogue. Well, it's originally a Greek word, but you don't see any rooms or places where people were assembling until you get to around the rabbis. You know, even the word rabbi isn't anywhere in the Tanakh. You know, the Torah, the prophets, the writings. But the idea of a synagogue is not to go someplace once a week to meet, but rather for the teacher of the Torah to be there, or several teachers, it doesn't matter, to have the opportunity for the Gentiles to come in and learn, and after about a year, they would be ready for conversion. And so that at that point, they would be circumcised and be treated as one of the nation of the Commonwealth of Israel. And
this is before Yahusha came, is it?
Well, it would have been basically just about that time and a little before that synagogues started to become, well, synagogues we think of as buildings, but the word itself is not referring to a room or a building. The word itself is referring to the congregation that's coming together, and they refer to it as shul even today. Shul is where we get our word school. So who needs to be schooled? Well, the untaught. And the nation of Israel wasn't to send their children to a man outside their home. They were trained inside their home, the Torah. And the parents had the obligation and responsibility to teach the children. Now, outsiders that may have been Gentile, that were servants or nearby neighbors that were around, they had to be taught. So they had this thing called shul. And it could have been done anywhere. But the kahal is the Hebrew word for the called out ones. And of course, the ones being called out are the Gentiles. The Gentiles that are called to the truth, the Torah, to be trained in it's like Cornelius. And what is it? Acts chapter 10, is it? Acts 10. And then Acts chapter 11, you have to read those two together now. But Cornelius was an Elohim fearer and a Roman centurion. He had 100 men under him, and he was giving gifts to the people of Israel, to help. And these offerings were getting the attention of Yahuwah. And so he sent a messenger to Cornelius and to go to Joppa, I believe it was, to find Peter, to Kepha, right? Peter, to come and talk to him. And that was amazing. So these Gentiles were basically needing to be taught. And so the idea of a synagogue, probably because the Gentiles understood that word, to come together in a place to study. Gogi or Gog means a place to study. And it would be an attractive thing. Now, to think of it today, you go to a Jewish synagogue and you go, well, there's no Gentiles here. And their objective isn't even on the radar screen to draw Gentiles, invite them and say, hey, you're a Christian. I see you're out there, or you're Islamic, or you're a Buddhist or something. Why don't you come over and we'll talk about the truth? We'll look at but then what do they bring out first? They bring out the Talmud. They say, well, we've got to get you indoctrinated here. See this wall of books? We're going to study this. Oh, no. You have to start where you're supposed to start, Teach them this. You have to teach them the Ten Commandments, And this is the thing that it should be on the wall of every school. In fact, every teacher should teach their children all of these 10 Commandments. But that's where you start, because the mixed multitude that was at Sinai, he wasn't whipping out the Talmud. No. He wasn't saying, okay, let's start out here. He was starting out with the first commandment. I am Yahuwah your Elohim, have no other before my face. And, what is the greatest affirmation of the faith of Abraham, Ishak, and Yaakov? What is the highest affirmation of that faith? Well, it was asked of Yahusha was asked this by a teacher who said, what is the greatest commandment? And Yahusha didn't even hesitate. He said, hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah, our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. Or it might have been translated even differently, Yahuwah is our Elohim, Yahuwah alone. You know, that's another alternate idea. Yahuwah is him, he is alone. He is the one. And that's the highest affirmation of what they call Judaism today. And it hasn't changed.
No.
You know, so why not have a Jewish synagogue, which should be the people, the congregation, come and embrace the outsiders and say, come in and let's learn the highest affirmation first. You know, hear, O Yisrael. Well, who's Yisrael? Well, the congregation of faithful, covenant-keeping people. And the covenant is the source of it. It's the thing that was in the ark. What was in the ark? Teach the Gentiles about it, you know. Don't start with the Talmud. I have to confess, I was once drawn to this in my early studies back in the late 80s, I guess, like 87, 88, when I wanted to go and learn from someone who knew more than I did, and there was a man. So I went to this guy that was called a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, they call him, and the first thing that we did was I sat at a table with maybe 10 people that were also seekers, and the rabbi sat at the head of the table, and we were studying the Talmud. So I said, what's this? And we weren't studying anything that I could really use. We were just studying discussions of men, you know, like the Council of Nicaea. Let's get that out. Let's read that. You might as well be whipping out a catechism of a Catholic and just saying, well, here's the doctrines of the faith, you know. Do you know what the word orthodox means?
No.
Most people don't. Orthodoxy is 2 words, and ortho just means straight, upright. Doxy is referring to thinking, upright thinking. According to who? Well, according to the majority. That's what this really means. Whatever the majority feels, the majority being the Nicolaitans, you know, the ones that lord over us.
Yeah.
Whatever they decide is what everybody else does. Well, that's what orthodox means. Yeah. And well, let me ask you this. You didn't know what the word orthodox meant. That means that a lot of people that are watching this don't know either. Who was the father of orthodoxy?
Well, upright thinking. By whose opinion? By Torah? Or?
Well, Torah-wise, it would be Yahuwah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no other person would be called father of anything. But father of orthodoxy, that title was given to this 27-year-old man named Athanasius, who stood at Nicaea and debated the doctrine of the incarnation and said, oh yes, Yahuwah is 3. and he won the debate, you know. So he's called the father of orthodoxy. And that's the man's writings that I read about what it is, the doctrine of the faith. Let's see if it's still up here. Yeah, whoever will be saved, before all things, it's necessary that he hold the Catholic faith, which faith except every one do keep whole and undefiled without doubt, he shall perish everlastingly. The Catholic faith is this. Now, Protestants need to listen to this, that we worship one God in Trinity, and Trinity in unity. See, it's all about the Trinity. That is the core. And without firmly believing this, he cannot be saved. Where's that written? You know, it's just crazy.
Well, we've got the wedding anniversary coming in a couple of weeks.
Oh, we do. Yes, that would be on the 18th of the 5th month, this month. Now, some are keeping it a month later, because they started out a month later this year. We don't have any controversy with that. It's just the way that they saw it. Somebody saw the moon and they said, "Oh, look, there's the solstice, or there's the equinox." They're worried about whether or not the sun is just a few minutes or hours before the equinox, and then they bump everything up. They're not watching what the older brother has done. We try to do that, because Yahusha's work today is to unite the two sticks to one. And if we're constantly saying, "No, I don't think that's right," well, who are we? We're the returning brother, The older brother's been in the household. He never left. So we kind of want to stay with them,
There's no controversy, but you're wrong.
Oh, sure. But I'm not in charge.
Sure.
And you're not following me or you or other people. We're just following the prescribed festivals. Now, if you bump everything forward a whole month, what's going to happen? You're going to run out of months. And then you're going to have 11 months, and you're going to maybe you're going to notice it. You might not remember it.
It's probably the easiest feast to get on board, as it's probably the easiest feast to hit the mark right in the bullseye, because it says count 7 full Sabbaths from first fruits, and first fruits is in the middle of, it's not hard, it's really easy. First fruits has to be on a Sunday, so and it has to be in unleavened bread. So it's how hard is it to count 7 weeks?
Well, they can't count to 3.
It's not rocket science.
I know, but if they can't count to 3, how they got to count to 7?
Yeah,
that's tough. But Acts, the book of Acts, was written by Luke, and of course, a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, he was a Gentile." Boy, this guy knew a lot of facts, didn't he? About other things in medicine, like the order of the priesthood and all this. And of course, they throw Paul out, and of course, the book of Acts is mostly about the book of the Acts of the Apostles, but really it's about the Acts of Yahusha in the Apostles. That's what the book of Acts really is about. But Yahusha was working in his people, and in fact, the whole opening scene of Acts is about him going up and then coming down in the Shekinah form above in the tongues of fire, the little Shekinah. The name was indwelling them. And Yahusha was in them, when he descended on Shavuot, as he descended in fire on the mountaintop. You got Sinai, with them, and then there's this black cloud and thick darkness and a burning fire. And that fire was the presence of the name of Yahuwah. And then we've got the same thing happening. 3,000 died that day. And then 3,000 were born through immersion on the outpouring of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Yahuwah. Yahusha came into these men. And he came in a visible manifestation that we call the Shekinah on these men's heads.
Oh, it's a spoiler alert. You're spoiling it for the next episode.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really, really that simple, It's not like really rocket science. It's not like you have to figure things out real heavily. But the real thing is see it from his perspective, not ours.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, brother. Mate, it's lovely catching up with you.
Yes, I miss seeing you and talking about all this.
Yeah.
Working hard. You're working hard too, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you got the Trinity happening in a couple of days. Is
in
that
a couple
what you're teaching?
I'm going to get up there and talk about that. And I'm going to mention the guy that should have won the debate too, Sabellius. Sabellius had it kind of right. Like we mentioned the 3 offices of Yahusha, the priest, the king, and the redeemer. Well, Sabellius was saying that what they were perceiving was actually different roles that Yahuwah himself is actually behaving in. It's not that he's 3, it's the fact that he manifests himself in several ways, and more than that too, because what about the Shekinah? What about the rock? Are we going to include those two? See, you don't even limit it to 3 with Yahuwah. He manifested himself in so many different ways. But lastly, he spoke to us through his Son, the body that he made for himself to inhabit. Yeah. And now he's inhabiting us, and all these little pieces are running around loving the Torah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, how about we catch up in a couple of weeks on Shavuoth?
Okay.
And then you will have done your seminar by then, and then we can discuss this new idea.
The new idea.
The new idea
Yeah.
seminar. Because
Yes.
we've done almost a season of sharp sickle episodes, so it might be time for something new.
Yeah.
Always looking for something fresh.
All right.
So.
Well, it was wonderful seeing you. We miss you.
Yeah.
And we for you guys every day.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Well,
Love you guys.
All right, love you, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye-bye.
later, sister. Bye-bye.
People, it's all or nothing now. You're either a weed or you are Donnell. You're breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. I am speaking into your heart, but you're chasing shadows. We keep moving further apart. I'm so near and you're so far. Do you care now? Will you follow? People, it's all or nothing now. You're either a weed or you are Donnell. You're breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now.
Keep rejoicing, keep on loving, stay obedient till the world ends.
all the wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky, leading souls into righteousness and truth, yeah, lifting up Yahusha in all they do.